Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cacawphony. I am Awesome Jelo, and my semblance is the ability to get three other Yahoos in here to record this. I am joined by these three Yahoos this time.
Hello, everyone. I am Ashes, and my semblance is to. Forgot.
Amnesia!
There you go.
Hello there, I'm Fel, and I don't have a semblance.
And I'm Shoober. My semblance is to cook a very mean curry.
Nice.
Nice.
Always a positive.
So you may have guessed, this episode's topic is going to be on semblances. You also may have known this because it's in the title. So, anyways, let's start things off with just semblances as a power system. Ruby is chock full of these between aura, dust, silver eyes, magic maidens, etc. But let's just focus on semblances. How do you guys feel about how those fit into everything?
I kind of feel it as like it's some sort of special ability. It's like,
Like your own
it's
personal superpower?
yeah. I don't really see how it like fits. It's like, of course, you gotta make people unique. You gotta give them special abilities. It's like you have dust. That's the world's or the remnants, like power system. Like how we have oil. I mean, you have the Grim. That's common enemy. But like semblances, that's just surprise. Everyone has that.
Yeah, I also think that semblances, as cool as they are, probably deserves either more of a spotlight or more tighter integration with some parts of the show, but I digress.
I really like them. In general, I like the unique superpowers to every single person trope. And really, I think I like it more than most any other different system that Ruby has. If you had to ask me, I would get rid of Dust, Silver Eyes, and Maidens before I get rid of Semblances.
Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea.
If you did have to get rid of one, like, what would be the first you'd get rid of?
Ooh,
I have to ask.
I think my first instinct is Maidens because of how thrown in they were.
Absolutely.
I'd rather have the Pillar Men. Aye.
Yeah.
I have a question. Was there any World of Remnant episode about semblances, or was there like any references to it in the books and all that? Like any further lore we can take from it?
See if I can pull it up.
The only reference I found regarding semblances is in that aura episode, where it just kind of implied that semblances is like a projection of the aura, which is weird because aura is the projection of the soul. So how deep does this go?
So semblances, in a way, are stands. That makes all of us stand users.
I suppose so.
No, but they're most similar to, like, I've mentioned this I think in other places, but like very similar to quirks in a way. Like
I've heard
every
that
person
comparison a
has
lot.
one unique ability, and not everyone has them too. Like maybe everyone has them, but not everyone has shown them. So it's not universal per se.
Right.
Yeah. I was also thinking, so you have schools for huntresses who have these semblances, except Sean, and then you have them all fight and you all train with their semblances. Like, is there any like school system for those who don't or not huntsmen? It's like, what are their schools like?
Well, I think that's where John kind of fits in, and possibly people like Mercury, Roman, and maybe even Ironwood.
Mm-hmm.
It's that it's a huntsman school. It's not a semblance school. They teach you how to fight, specifically Grim, sometimes people, but it's mostly about that fighting. If you can develop something that you don't need a semblance, that's great.
And speaking of Ironwood, I think I have an idea of what his semblance is. I believe it is immense strength, because in my opinion, he kind of carried Volume 7, if you ask me.
He did. You really did.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's good to see more Ironwood stands on this.
Yeah, just to continue on, it's like him. So if I would like sum up Volume 7, I'd say it's Ironwood carrying the whole thing while listening to the soundtrack.
Mm.
Sal, were you saying something?
I was just amused because that kind of matches the last episode we recorded last night, which was the Ironwood episode.
Oh,
I'll have to get
And now
that
you're
listening once
getting it.
it's
Good
up.
job. Well, let's go over some of the. Let's actually no. Let's start over with the least favorite semblances of you guys.
the ones I
Oh.
forget.
Favorites.
I actually literally have the semblance tab open so I can remind myself what some of the semblances were, to be honest.
Yeah, I can't really think on the top of my tongue of what would be my least favorite. So, like, what about the main cast, like the main 8? Like, which one of them seems like the weakest?
Well, for that one, I
Yes. Or are we talking least favorite? Because they're different.
Least favorite.
yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
I'd probably go with Blake's. It's like I can imagine so much more with like her like shadow abilities. I can just imagine like Naruto Shadow Clone Jutsu, some of like stat stuff. But like all she uses it for is like for like evasion. And I could use like the shadows for like projections. Like she could use it for a
Yeah.
lot more, or it could be potentially used for a lot more, but it's just there.
They could be. Yeah, I can see that.
Oh,
Mine. Okay, you go for it.
go ahead, Shoober.
Okay, mine probably
nice.
is Vine's semblance.
Ooh.
He had like it's a controversial opinion, and it's definitely one of the more useful semblances. But I like it very little for two reasons. One, it kind of limited his fighting style from what little we saw. Like he's very dependent on it. Two, we never saw him use his weapon. And from the few talks I had with others, it's almost like his weapon had no synergy with his semblance. So we never got to see it used.
Good point. Now that you say that, I think I might change my answer to Elm. Just ruining yourself, it's just so situational.
Yeah.
Even
Fair.
and you don't get that much out of it. I feel like it's even less of a payoff than what Nora gets. And that's already very situational.
Yeah.
At least with Nora, when that situation comes, the battle's already done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Nora's. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead before we move on.
All right. Yeah. My least favorites were probably either Tyrion's semblance or Robin's, because they're like, it's hard to describe, but they work so perfectly. It's too perfect. Right. Like Robin's is a detective if people can tell the truth. It's annoys me to no end. It's like that works perfectly for the whole,
It is a plot device.
Yeah.
I like Robin more than most people do, but it is a plot device. It's there to make sure that yes, Ironwood is not talking out his ass about Salem.
Yeah.
I'd wager that it would. Sorry, I'd wager that it would not happen, or that semblance would not be used in Volume 8. What just happened to my thing?
It's possible, but it's hard to use without it being written around. That makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. So this does bring up a question I've had: is that can semblances be considered a get out of jail free card? Like, do you design a plot story? Do you design characters? Do you design what's going to happen? And then, according to what needs to happen, do you assign a character a semblance?
I think for some of the, if you're introducing a character, maybe yes, you can, but then you're also going to have to try and figure out what to do with it afterwards.
And that's the
you know what I do? If I were like a writer for Ruby, like I wouldn't really have like the whole situation be based upon the person's semblance. Like for instance, how like Robin has the truth or tell or truth or lie detector thing. Like I'd like have a new character, and like have their semblance be just whatever you can think of, and have the situation itself be based upon like how the character will be able to use their semblance to take it down or finish the task.
All right, I suppose I can see that as well. but at the same time, I don't think it's a bad idea to really plan things out and set these things up in such a way that your abilities are reflected. I can't word right now, but you get the idea that it's not a terrible idea of making your plot and having your semblances fit it, at least for a single arc.
Mm-hmm. So that also kind of leads me to another question: are semblances hereditary?
Ooh.
Because I know, like,
I
you
think
have
some are.
Weiss and Winter, they have similar semblances,
Yeah,
but
I
you
believe
like
that
don't say,
one's-
like Ruby and Yang, they have absolutely different semblances.
I think
All
that one is mentioned in canon as being hereditary, but I'm not certain on that one.
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
really weird one. It was mentioned, but we aren't really sure why, and it also kind of conflicts with some of the other things we know.
One of the
Personally-
Chinese mysteries.
I just think it was like early installment, like rules that were put down. Like maybe they put that down for the Schnee semblance because they wanted to have some semblances be hereditary and some not, and maybe expand off of that later. But then they realized semblances are way too broad to have them hereditary and just dump that whole plot line.
The Ruby wiki says that the Schnee family semblance summoning glyphs is unique in the fact that it is completely hereditary.
Oh, that's just so weird. I kind of want an explanation for that, but I'm not sure what would be logical.
It kind of reminds me of Naruto when they have like their special abilities, like how Sasuke has like the Sharingan and all that, or the Uchiha clan, and they have like Naruto's clan and like all that. They all have special unique abilities. That kind of reminds me.
Have we
parallels.
seen any other like parent sibling
No.
semblance relationships at all other
No.
than the Schnee case?
Don't think
Yeah.
so.
I don't think
Exactly.
so. I was looking because I thought I recalled something about Ty's semblance, but I couldn't recall it for the life of me.
He doesn't have a
Oh.
semblance yet.
Yeah.
Unknown.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's bring this back a little bit. We talked about least favorite semblances. Let's talk about favorite semblances.
I go with Pyrrha.
Anything?
Not because of how she uses it, but like the potential, because polarity and magnetism, that if you just use that to the full advantage, you're basically overpowered. It's probably one of the reasons why she's dead.
Yeah.
Because especially looking at excuse me for the extreme nerd that's about to happen. But
Look, we're
looking at-
talking about a Texas anime in a podcast. I don't
Alright.
think you need to worry about nerd.
All right, but looking at the distances Pyrrha uses her semblance at during her final fight there, is her power over magnetism has to be immense because she's able to lift these massive gears, which weigh a lot, up against the power of gravity while being very far away from them, and magnetism gets, I believe, exponentially weaker over distance. So that implies that the ability of her semblance to produce magnetic fields is very, very strong.
I could argue that she generates those fields away from her body.
And yeah, that could be argued, and that's also weird.
That said, there are also, again, very heavy gears, and so yes, she is very powerful.
Now, I believe I read from a death battle, like one of the death battle fan fictions between, I believe, Pyrrha and a JoJo character. They have like the same ability, like polarity, but instead, where Pyrrha is able to like do big stuff with the magnet polarity, this JoJo character is able to do polarity in like the microscopic level. Like he can take the iron and all the like iron atoms in blood and turn it as a weapon that kills the person from the inside out. I was wondering, do you
Right.
think she'd have the ability to do such a thing?
I'm going to say no, simply because she doesn't need anything more.
Yeah, she probably won't even use it too. She's so kind.
There's also that.
She'll probably do it
personally-
once and say sorry.
Oof. No. For myself, I kind of like the semblances that are a lot, not so overt. More so, I like crows. I like maybe not clovers, but something that's more passive and subtle like that. Because of that, I really like Yatsuhashi. Wow, I really butchered that.
I do too.
Yatsuhashi For anyone that hasn't read After the Fall, what he does is he can wipe someone's memory, and this can be for however long it's wiped. No, for how much he wipes, that's how long it stays wiped. So if he wipes your mind for just the last 5 minutes, you won't get back for 5 minutes.
Mhm.
And I like it because of how it's utilized. It's a burden. He kind of got jealous of a baby sibling, so he made his parents or mother forget it for a little bit.
Oh
And
my.
that turned out very. I mean, everyone was fine, but it just was very dark, and he kind of learned to fear it. And that's the kind of thing that I enjoy.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Hmm.
One of my personal favorites is Sons, which is really interesting because we didn't see it used much, but I like it for two reasons. One, it's useful but also limiting in the sense that when he projects the clones, he can't do
Yes.
much movement, and it's like more effective during the day than at night. From also what
I'm
I
not sure
understand.
about that, but
I'm not sure about that either, but it would be cool if it was. And it's thematically appropriate. Like Sun Wukong in Legend was very well known for making like projected copies of himself and doing so much shit.
I
And
mean, honestly, he's known for doing almost everything. He makes DC Comics just hang their heads in shame.
yeah, so that's one thing I really like. Thematic semblances, not just like out of nowhere semblances. Sun's one is thematic and fitting with him, and I wish we saw more of that for other characters.
Well, one of the things that I liked what you said there is the limiting factor. And that's what I enjoy in writing. It's not just give your heroes a power, also give them something to limit themselves,
A
something that
weakness.
they need to overcome,
Mhm.
or be used in an interesting way.
Right.
Yeah, it's like that kind of thing. That's why Crow's Semblance is my favorite because um it's in order to like utilize it properly, you have to be aware of the battlefield. You have to put your opponents into positions where something that's just up to pure chance can befell
Mhm.
them. Say under a tree branch that's recently been weakened, and
Uh-huh.
right where that way it doesn't come back and bite you in the ass or bite your friends in the ass.
That leads me to a question. Is Crow's semblance like misfortune to himself or to others and himself?
Yes.
Alright.
The latter.
I see, alright.
Yeah, it's kind of misfortune to him and those around him, like
Mhm.
his general area.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's an AoE semblance, yes.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about it with Pyrrha's, but let's kind of look a bit about the stronger semblance and the weaker ones. So for everyone, let's just go with what you think might be the strongest semblance and what you think might be the weakest.
Say Pyrrha's. Strongest Pyrrha's, probably.
Mm.
That
Oof.
or emeralds.
I was gonna say emeralds.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
Pyrrha's
say
is really
Situ-
powerful.
It's
honestly.
arguably situational, most powerful, but when you are in that situation, it is the
Fatal.
best.
Yeah, wasn't that one creepypasta for Ruby? Like, wasn't the whole premise about that as Emerald tricking Ruby into thinking all of her friends left her to die?
I think I know which
Uh,
one you're talking about.
That
Yeah.
one
Yes.
that's like very cursed.
Yes. First.
God,
Hmm.
I read that for the first time recently, and I was like, what did I
That's
just read?
I don't know, I was thinking the same exact thing. I'm used to it by now.
Well, we
Yeah.
can't have curses on the podcast now, can we?
Yeah, I was saying that in my opinion, I think one of the strongest ones is Neo's, simply because of how many different ways we've seen it being used. Like, it's not just limited to herself. She transformed that bullhead. It's not just what she can transform into. It's literally almost anything. She can communicate with it. She can
Mhm.
like teleport almost with it. It's broken strong, I think.
Yeah, and that's actually something of an interesting thing that I think is that we have both Emerald and Neo with some of the strongest semblances, and both of them are dealing with
Illusions.
reality, or perception.
Yeah.
One
Yep.
of those things.
It-
I've
Probably yeah, I think it's probably a coincidence, but it's an interesting one nonetheless.
I'm like pretty sure Emerald's semblance was designed before Neo's, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, Neo was a
Um,
last minute character.
Yeah, I would think so.
I've been kind of just sitting here remaining silent because I kind of have I haven't really decided what I think is the strongest one, but I definitely have ones that I think could be the strongest ones. And that's Ruby's semblance, depending on how it works, because I don't know right now much about how it works aside from she goes fast.
Mhm.
Weiss's
I can.
and like the Glyphs and Yang's.
Oh,
Those are like the
Hmm.
three that I think are some of the most powerful.
Yang is just Super Saiyan. That's already overpowered.
Weiss's one is actually pretty bonkers once you sit down and think about it.
It really is. And I think that actually might be a bit of a good segue into how semblances are kind of utilized, because Weiss has been under, let's just say, a lot of scrutiny about her semblance and how it's used, as well as just how many uses it has.
Right. Would you, like, before we get into that, I just have to ask, would you think her semblance would be more balanced if her only ability was summoning? Or would it still be overpowered?
I can see summoning working because isn't like the only way she can summon things if she kills the things she summons, right?
Yeah, she has
Yeah.
to defeat
Yes.
them.
I'd be just so morbid if that was the only thing it could do.
But I think it, like, I mean, it would be morbid, yeah, when you think about it, but.
Yeah, it wouldn't really be. Here's why I think of that, because like the Shnees, what they do is they take faunus and they use them as slaves. So basically, the semblance probably can or like revolve around that, because you're basically killing the spirit like of the animal and using that spirit for your own will.
I mean, I get
See-
your point there, but the thing is that it was Nicholas that set things up. It's his, I assume,
Yeah.
his semblance.
I think
And
it is implied
it's-
that it's his semblance.
Mhm.
But it's Jacques that does and makes things go all sideways.
Ah,
Yep.
that was his crack theory then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jacques is the money bags.
Yes, he is.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Well, we never did
First-
mention what we think some of the weakest ones were before we hop
all right,
on.
I suppose let's backtrack. I'll just say again, Elms. That's meh.
Yeah.
How overpowered do you think Velvet's semblance is? Just basically copying, pasting everyone's weapons and skills.
That's a wait. No, that was my first answer for least favorite semblances. I just dislike copycats as a principle.
Kakashi's like,
I don't know who that is, but okay.
oh,
Not probably the weakest, but also one of the ones I really dislike is probably Sienna's one that they revealed. So apparently,
What's yours?
apparently Sienna's semblance was like making her more effective, like stronger, faster when the opponent is weaker, which is dumb.
I mean, it's definitely almost kind of ironic for someone who is working to overthrow oppressors. One
Yeah.
whose semblance would work best as someone who oppressed, right? You are extra strong over the weak, and
Yep.
faunus are definitely, at least within the Society of Remnant, the weak in this case. Not necessarily that they're not as strong, but that they have less social standing and are quite often more disadvantaged.
Mhm.
I really don't like that one either. I hate the win more buttons.
Yank's one is interesting in that regard, in that it exactly isn't a win more button and it has conditions, which is cool.
Well, that's what I like. I enjoy that one. Instead of win more, it's hey, this is your catch-up mechanism.
Yeah.
This is how you even the fight.
Yep.
And kind of that's why I prefer over Adams, who he absorbs energy with his blade, which for one, okay, so now his semblance is tied to a specific object, and if said object gets broken, he might be screwed over.
Or thrown over a cliff.
Yeah, if he loses it bad. But also he doesn't have to take any kind of damage or he doesn't have to be in a bad spot to have it be as insanely powerful as we saw with where he cut Yang's arm off. He doesn't need to lose the fight to do that. He can like spend time beforehand lighting his sword up with bullets before a fight. All of a sudden, he has all kinds of power going into it. If Yang does the same thing, she's going in with a weakened aura.
Yeah, I see. Also, I don't think we give this enough importance, but Marcus had a broken semblance. If you can just steal other people's semblances.
I am still of the opinion that's wordplay.
You think it's a lie?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know what exactly is going on there, but I just feel that there is something more than just, oh, I steal semblances. That doesn't. I don't know. I'm weird. Anyone that's talked to me about OCs and their semblances will realize that I'm weird, and I'm like, no, that doesn't seem to fit Remnant's semblance idea.
Yeah, I got a whole collection of those types of things.
The way I always interpreted it was he prevented him from using it, but it was something he actively had to do, right? It was more of like a semblance suppression than active thievery.
Yes, okay, that I can get behind, especially because we saw something somewhat similar. No, we saw exactly that in After the Fall. Someone, spoilers, there was someone that was able to suppress someone else's semblance, and their semblance was amplifying emotions, which, as you might imagine, on Remnant is dangerous.
Yeah.
Very much
I was
so.
about to say, oh, damn, I never read it. Oh, well.
Yeah, sorry.
I would support that theory a bit more, but the problem is, if he's actually dead, why wouldn't Mercury have his semblance back?
And has he explicitly said he does not have his semblance back?
I believe he has.
Yes.
If I had to guess, if that were the case, Marcus would just use his semblance for a while, and maybe then later replaces Mercury's legs.
I don't know.
That is assuming that Mercury's semblance is leg related, which honestly pretty safe bet.
Yeah. That again, that would explain why if Mercury didn't permathieve, that it doesn't work because the parts that were there aren't.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like taking Adam's sword.
There you go.
The sword.
Just take the sword and run with it.
Does Wraith need to use her sword to do the portals?
Good question.
Seems like she does, because before
She-
she does
she
any of the special
uses
stuff,
it-
she does that little position.
Yeah, she does the slice with it, but is that strictly necessary? Is that almost a ritual she's developed to make it look cool?
I think it might be a focus.
necessary.
I think it's a focus. Honestly, I also kind of feel the same way about Adam. I have nothing to back it up, but I think it's just a focus. They could just do it with their bare hands if needed, but it's nowhere near as effective.
Yeah, I can see it like that.
I guess we'll never know.
I mean, how many other semblances aside from specifically those two have we seen tied to specific objects?
Off the top of my head, those are the only two.
Scarlet's not Scarlet. Velvet's a box. That's how she get her semblance.
Not quite.
Not exactly. Yeah.
How Velvet works is she's able to replicate someone's fighting style, but obviously for that you need the weapon to go with it. cell.
Yeah, and
So
that
when you
box
put 'em
projects the
together-
weapon.
when you put them together, there you go.
Exactly. That's a good example of weapon semblance synergy.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
I'm maybe thinking Flint might also apply, like to an
yeah.
extent.
because
A little bit.
his is the well, no, his is just the make more of him.
Yeah,
Yes.
a quartet. Like it seems very like musical based.
Yeah.
So I don't know how effectively he'd do it without his trumpet.
Although you could also say that he makes his own team less than he makes a quartet, because teams of Ruby or teams in Remnant, after all, are made up of 4.
Right.
True.
And speaking of which, speaking of members, who was the 4th member of like from Volume 3, like Cinder, Emerald, Mercury? Who
Neo.
was that 4th person? Neo.
Neo, was it? Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Alright.
She was all disguised and stuff with her
Spy.
fancy semblance. All right, let's see. We got.
What's next on the agenda?
Well, how about let's just go with semblances that you want to see in the show.
I have a whole collection.
Well,
Alright.
let's just start with one and see where we go from there.
Okay, so probably my most balanced one, or probably something more akin to Ubercharge from TF2. Basically, how that works, if you don't know it, basically, you have a medic who heals people, and once that heals up, they use something called the Ubercharge, which is basically the thing. And once activated, he and the person he is currently healing receive automatic invincibility for 8 seconds. I was thinking of how that could be implemented is like similar to how it's a build-up. Like after you get beaten up more and more, like it like charges up, and once activated, you like receive no matter how hard or how powerful a hit you receive, like you don't feel nothing, like no energy is taken away from you.
So,
But
similar to
Yeah,
Talk semblance,
Talk.
but with a bit of a different requirement or
Yeah.
restriction.
Yeah. Stock had a straight up 60-second invulnerability, basically.
I gotta say that's a pretty good one. I would like to see some form of invulnerability come back because I think they really just scratched the surface with using that as a fighting ability.
mhm.
I would like to see if something like that appears. I'd like to see it come with some kind of drawback.
I think the drawback I set up for that one is the more like have it like at a set time, like for instance, like 60 seconds, like I just throwing that out there. But like the more he gets beaten up and beaten up and beaten up, like the shorter the duration becomes because like the energy from the blows takes away the time.
I had one that I had seen, but I can't remember what it is for the life of me.
Want me to say my second one? What do you think?
No, I got one instead.
Oh,
This is one of the few times that I actually have made an OC or anything like that. It was supposed to be someone that was very passionate, would get really into whatever he sets his mind to. And his semblance would be to superheat his body. So what he would do is his weapon would be a couple of gauntlets with chains. So what he does is he just grapples with you or wraps you up with the chains, and that heat will transfer over.
I see.
Basic but effective.
And you can hug people to death. Who wouldn't want that?
They are become the ball of bees.
Say again?
So there's I believe it's a type of bee that when they find a wasp, surround the wasp in a literal ball of bees and beat their
They sting them
wings
to
so
death.
fast they raise the temperature high enough to kill the wasp, but it doesn't kill the bees.
I remember that. I remember that thing.
Roasted to death.
That
Yeah,
is
and it's
interesting.
That's
and
like
that
roasting
is-
to the next level.
Yeah.
Nature is scary.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
I believe they're from Japan, but I might be wrong about that one. That is me trying to remember.
Thanks, Japan.
Seems like they come from Australia.
I mean,
I would have said
Given the
Africa,
nastiness.
but hey.
No,
But
those bees are a whole nother kind of murderous nasty.
Oh, so Florida in there. It's like Florida, I see.
Right. Well, let's
Right.
get back to semblances. Did you think of that? What you were thinking, Fel?
No, at this point,
Mhm.
I'm like looking forward through the large amount of fanfics I've read.
Oh my.
All right. Well, I know a certain someone else that's in here that has some OC semblances.
Yes, of course.
Uh-oh.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, the thing is, some of mine I'm like more happy with than others. Like, for example, one of them um, I like kind of discussed with Jelo for a while when I was planning it. So it was essentially a form of aura drain that the character has, and
Mhm.
like he told me right then and there that he doesn't like aura drains. I don't know
Th-
if like I imagined that.
Nah, this is true. I don't like the idea. It's just like wham, your powers are mine now.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, normally I wouldn't either, but then that's why I was thinking like if I wanted to use it, I'd have to implement it nicely. So basically what his does is like he can only do the aura drain when he like maintains contact and it's pretty slow. So basically his fighting style is grappling, submission moves, and like trying to hold on to opponents, not landing blows and like fighting from a distance. So basically, the longer he can hold on to an opponent or like grapple with them or basically just try to chip away at their aura, the more effective he becomes.
Okay, that one I actually do like because it has an interesting limiter, and it's the limiting factor that affects their fighting. It's not the ability.
Exactly, and that this also means he doesn't fight with the weapon because he can't channel it through any other objects.
All right.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I realized what it was I wanted to mention, and it wasn't actually any specific OC semblance, but actually an interpretation of Ruby's semblance in
Mhm.
one fic or another. I have no clue what it was that I read, but it was that Ruby moved incredibly quickly, and because of this, she got and kind of they took what happened with Dash and the Incredibles, and where he got blamed for things. And sometimes, yeah, sure, he was at fault, but they took it to a whole nother level where Ruby was often distrusted by others because anytime something went missing or went wrong, she was blamed. And so that isolated
Oh
her.
my.
And I really enjoyed how the author wrote that. It was very well done.
Poor thing.
Aw.
Yeah,
Oh.
it was, of course, not fun for Ruby, but made for an interesting read.
I have to remember that for some time.
Ha, that is cool. Like, and I mean, I could get into like my main character that OC is the semblance I designed, but that's a whole nother thing that I'm still working on. So I'd rather not.
I could explain my second semblance. This one I haven't really had that much time to like balance and all that.
Mhm.
But before I like begin to the actual ability, like you gotta have to like have some context, kinda. Right.
Okay.
So think of it like kind of like a balance between good, like morally good and evil. Like you have like the concept of angels and devils or demons.
Mhm.
So the character would be someone of good faith, like good morals and all that. Basically, practically a saint. But deep within them, probably this concept's probably been abused to death. But they have some spirit or concept that is intertwined with them that is the opposite of who they are outside. And this thing, this probably just basically them, but demonic, is like the epitome of their worst nightmare. Like they the person fears this thing to death, but has the ability to unleash it to others, like given proper circumstances, of which I can't describe because I have no idea how to release it. But basically, have it so that there's two people, you and this demon, fighting against someone instead of it just being you alone. And being the major but the downside of it being that one, you're scared of this thing, like you fear it, and two, like when you release it out of yourself, it has full reign of what it wants to do. Like it can backfire on you, but typically it has because it's focused on you, like its thing. The reason why you're alive is because the reason why it's alive is because you're alive. Like it would focus on whatever you want it to do. So if you wanted to kill something that's about to kill you, and all that. So yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
I've seen that kind of thing before, and that's not to say it's unoriginal or anything. I really that sort of thing can be really well played on, really well paid off. I'm not sure if we'd quite get that in Ruby itself.
Depends on the writing. Like you have to execute it properly in order to be really, really good.
Right,
Give
and
it
that's
time.
kind of
And if,
time is the thing. I don't see it. I mean, maybe in a spin-off or something.
yeah, and if it goes wrong, it'll just basically be like a My Immortal situation.
I mean, the nature of it kind of reminds me of the Sentry from Marvel Comics, and I'm not a big comic guy, but this just reminds me of because there was, I believe, if I'm remembering this right, the Sentry, and then the Void, which was him but evil, basically, and he was constantly in conflict with himself. Of course, how you talked about it, it's different. It's just kind of the duality there reminded me.
Yeah, that's kind of I can see the parallels between what I was thinking and what that is. Yeah.
Actually, I think I will take a crack at explaining my OC semblance because I want to like work out kinks or see if you guys understand it in general. So if you don't mind, I don't need context. I think, but basically,
let's do this one last thing, and then we'll wrap things up.
Sounds good. Okay, so basically, what his ability is that he it's since I'm a big fan of the summoning abilities, but this one is essentially it's kind of like summoning not a clone but a spirit of sorts, like a summoned kind of like what Weiss does, but a little different. And he can summon like spirits of the original wielders of whatever weapon he uses. But the thing about it is, like, he actually needs to have had some sort of connection with it, because I'm kind of like going off of a whole line of how the weapon you use always has a little part of your soul in it, no matter even after you've passed. So it's kind of like he can draw that out. So right now I have him he uses his father's weapons because he knew those while he was growing up. And that's what he works with, and he learns to use one other one. But it's like I'm not going to give him anything else, but there's always that possibility that he might. But if he has to use something else, that person is dead. So he doesn't want to actively use it. It reminds him of the dead people. And that's not nice.
All right, interesting, I gotta say.
Yeah, I was
indeed.
Right. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, at first I was thinking, no, this won't work. But seeing Weiss's semblance and as well as what it can do, I think I can see something like that possibly happening.
Possibly. It depends on how I can write it in. So yeah, look forward to that maybe once I get that far.
It is interesting during how Shoober was writing this because I'm his most regular beta. And the way it initially was written for the piece that I just baited recently, like a couple days ago, it was almost more as if the semblance was more its own thing, right? The way it was originally written was more the semblance itself activated. Kind of just the way it was written could be easily interpreted more like that.
Yeah, right. It's like people don't exactly know if whatever he summons has a mind of its own, or is it fully under his control. So kind of like what Ash just said, I guess.
All right, well, I think we're gonna wrap this up here. I hope you guys all kind of enjoyed this.
I know I did.
It was fun.
Yep, just have a little chill back, talk about semblances, all that good stuff. So if you kind of want to chill, I feel like something. I don't like it. But if you want to chill with us, guys, you can join the Crow's Nest. Wolf will put a link down in the description for you. We got Ruby, we got some writing, we got a bunch of other stuff as well.
There are
So if
also
that sounds
other
good,
incredibly interesting people that are also there.
And it's
yes,
free.
very.
Mhm.
All right. Well, this has been the Cacophony, and I have been Awesome Jelo, joined by.
Ashes.
I'm Fel still.
And Shoober, signing out.
Good night.